Hello and welcome back to my basement. This is Jeremiah Wolf. Somebody reached out to me today with a question, or yesterday technically, with a question about salary and negotiating and getting a new job. And so I wanted to address that. Um, First, let me just apologize. It is 2 a.m. and I have been up since I haven't really gone to bed, basically. My kids started crying at 11 p.m. I'd already been in bed for a couple hours by that point, but yeah. So I don't know what's like. He seems fine. I don't know what's going on. He just keeps waking up crying. I'm a little tired and a little frustrated because tomorrow's gonna fucking suck. All right. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about Brett. So Brett says, "Hey Jeremiah, I've been watching your videos for a while, and I got a quick question if you have the time. I've been doing networking while doing desktop support for about 3 years and have been full time for over a year. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I'm thinking what Brett's saying is he's been doing desktop support for 3 years and then full time networking for a year. I'm not sure. I just recently got my CCNP Enterprise. Congratulations, Brett. And I want to get a couple more enterprise certs on my way to CCIE. I will just say CCIE might be a bit of a big step with only 1 year of experience. I'm not saying it's impossible, um, but you might want to plan on just getting a little few more years experience. But whatever works. I'm looking to change up my environment, but I'm struggling to get an understanding of how much I'm worth. I watched your salary negotiation video and it was very helpful, but I'm finding it difficult to determine a starting point. I don't want to be the guy that no one hires because I'm overestimating my value, but I also don't want to accept a low value when I'm worth more. Thank you and keep up the great content. Well, thank you, Brett. So let's talk about this. What Brett's talking about is a very common problem. How do you know what to ask for, especially if you're trying to sort of transition into a new role? So Brett's going from desktop support into networking, recently certified, and so that puts him in a difficult spot. Um, but there are some tools to help you out. Now, the first thing to be aware of is that here in the United States, most places, it is, how to say this? In some places in the United States, there are a few states and a few cities that have salary transparency or pay transparency laws. And these take different effects. Basically, when you have a pay transparency law, the employer cannot forbid the employee from sharing salary information. In most places, when you get a job, most places here in the United States, when you get a job, you will sign a contract, and part of that contract says you are not allowed to discuss, whether with your coworkers or outside the company, how much money you make. Now, this is a very deliberate purpose. The purpose of this is, Brett illustrates it perfectly. It makes it very hard to know what the going rate for a certain skill set is. And because of that, it gives employers the ability to easily lowball you and force you to take less money than you're potentially worth. Um, it's very easy for me to get sidetracked. I will just say that here in the United States of America, uh, the politicians and the businesses have done a masterful job of convincing the last couple generations of American workers that somehow, if we just prioritize business rights, if we make it easier for businesses to exploit their workers, somehow that will eventually translate into you as an employee making more money, having better working conditions. It has yet to work out in the 50 years that this experiment has been going on, and yet Americans keep voting for politicians who who want to strip away any remaining vestige of workers' rights. Um, it's mind blowing how willfully American voters vote against their own best interests. Luckily, there are some places where this is changing, and these pay transparency laws are taking effect. And what that means is that now you can actually ask, how much do you make? And someone can tell you without fear of repercussion. Also, oftentimes, though maybe not always, with these pay transparency laws, there is a requirement that the potential employer, post a salary range along with the job. Now, oftentimes these ranges are absurd. I've seen examples of ranging, almost from X to 2X. I mean, how does that's ridiculous. So they're trying to circumvent the intent of the law. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating that, I mean, why? Why not just be honest? Why not just say, this is what we're willing to pay? Of course, there's going to be a range. Someone with less experience doesn't deserve the same amount as someone with more experience because they're bringing less to the table. So, it's natural for there to be a range, but a range of X to 2X, like, that's absurd. So, but my point to this is that what you can do, Brett, or other people, is you can look for jobs in the specific areas that have pay transparency laws. Just Google, find who has pay transparency. California, New York City, here in Ohio, Cincinnati and Toledo, 2 cities that have pay transparency laws. There's like 5 or 6 states. California's going to have lots of tech jobs. So that might be a good place to look. What I have found in preparation for this video, I was doing a little bit of digging around online. What I found is that even though California requires that employers post a pay range, they don't seem to be required to do that on job aggregator sites, so like Dice or Monster or whatever. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. But what you can do is search for jobs in California related to your skill set. Then you can find the company, go to the company's website. You find the job posting on Dice, say, then you go to that company's website, find the job posting on their website, and they should have a salary range. So that's one tool to give you a rough idea about what to expect. Another thing you can do, and I'm sorry, but once you get that rough estimate, you can then take that number to a cost of living calculator. There's lots of cost of living calculators online. So you can say, if you find a job making $100,000, this is just an example, in Los Angeles, you can then calculate that. Well, that equals $85,000 where I live, right? So find the job, use the cost of living calculator. Another great tool. There's no shortage of online communities for networking. Reddit has a bunch, r/networking, r/Cisco. There's I think there's like r/CCNP. So, get on there. I just today joined Router Gods, routergods.com. It's a large community of networking professionals. They have a Discord. Join, get on the Discord, and ask. Just ask what's a salary expected. And then again, do the translation. I don't know where you live. Well, actually, I do know where Brett lives because I have his LinkedIn. But I don't know where you live. So go and do the calculation with the cost of living calculator. So there's a couple tools. That's going to take a little bit of work on your part. Another tool that you have at your disposal is working with a recruiter. Now, if you get your resume updated and online at all the job boards and on LinkedIn, I can all but guarantee that you are going to be inundated with recruiters, wanting to talk to you. It has been my experience that the vast majority of those are from India. I don't quite understand how it works. I think these people just sit in an office and they just do hundreds of of recruitment emails every day and then just hoping that, one will land. It's such a weird business model. I don't understand how it works, or quite frankly, why anyone would ever want to partner with a recruiter who's on the other side of the planet and they can have no real relationship with. It's weird to me. But you will get real recruiters who are local, eventually. And I have found, for me personally, I've only ever gotten, well, I got one full-time job through a recruiter. I've gotten a lot of, there was like a 2-year period where I was doing a lot of contract work. And so I worked with a recruiting agency, K-Force. And I had a pretty good experience with that. Not 100%, but it was what it is, what it was. How much time? We're at 10 minutes. I have this really interesting story about working with K-Force and how they kind of, I don't want to say they screwed me. They didn't. It was interesting, but we're already at 10 minutes, and most people don't watch more than 7 minutes of my videos. So you can work with a recruiter, find somebody local. They'll almost certainly reach out to you if your skill set and experience really are valuable, and it sounds like they are. Go meet with them at their office, sit down, have a conversation, talk with them on the phone, whatever it is. Talk with them about what you're looking for, and they're going to find opportunities, and they will have some insight into what you can expect to ask. Like, they're looking now. Here's something to be important to realize when you're working with a recruiter. It can sometimes feel like they're working for you for free, but they're working for you. It feels that way. It feels like they're your partner. The reality is slightly different, though. They are not necessarily your partner. They may get a percentage. If you take a full-time job, they may get a percentage of your salary. Not that you have to pay it, but I mean, like, as part of the deal with the company that they found, that they placed you with. But usually it's either going to be a flat fee or whatever it is. But keep that in mind. Like, their motivation is not to place you in the best job possible. Their motivation is to place you. They get paid when you get a job. They don't necessarily get more money just because you're making more money. So they're not necessarily on your side, but they do want to help you get a job. So they are going to have some information that's going to help you. They're going to be able to give you some rough ideas about what's appropriate. And they're going to be able to hopefully set you up with some interviews, which makes the whole process a lot easier. So online forums, just come out and ask. Look for job postings in areas that have pay transparency. Find the range that they're offering. Do the math. Work with a recruiter. Those are really the primary ways. There is no easy way to just know what you're worth, unless you are getting in with a union shop. There are some union IT shops. It's very, very rare. In which case they will be like, well, if here's your position, here's your experience, here's what you make. I know people are very much opposed to that because every individual thinks that they're special, and they think that if I work within that structured system, that I will lose out. And the reality is that 95% of people will do better within that system. There are a very small percentage of people. So statistically speaking, you are not one of those special people. You're not. So when you're voting, when you're out there, please consider joining a union. All right, that's pretty much all that I can really say about that. I will say this too. If you're looking to transition, so that's okay. So here's a sort of a separate thing. If you're looking to transition, there is some value sometimes in the job itself, separate from the monetary remuneration. What I mean by that is, so for an example, years ago, I took a job. I took a $20,000 pay cut, $20,000 a year pay cut, because I wanted less stress. Like that had value to me. When someone who is starting off in their career, they might be willing to take a slightly smaller pay rate if it means that they're going to be exposed to more things. You know, think about this. Think you want to think long term when you're thinking about your career. If you get a job at a big corporation, chances are you're going to be put into a group. You're going to be put in the wireless group, okay? And you're going to get really good at doing wireless networking with their brand of wireless controller and wireless access point. You're going to get really good at that. But that's all you're going to do. So you might say you start off at, say, $50,000 working at that company. You work there for 5 years. In fact, this is actually a perfect example because I literally just about a month ago had a guy give me this exact scenario in his career. But took a job. He's been there for like 10 years, but he's really good at one brand and one brand of wireless. That's it. That is his entire networking experience. So he's gotten a few raises. He wants to leave now because he wants to broaden his experience. The problem is no one wants to pay him what he's making right now. So he can either stay where he's at, maybe get a few more raises over the years, but this is it. Like this is where he's going to be. Or he can leave, take a pay cut, potentially a substantial pay cut, but then put himself in a position to be exposed to so much more stuff, such that after a year or two, or maybe 3 at a different company, he's going to be in a position to ask for much more money because he'll have so much more broad and deep experience. So that's something to keep in mind, especially when you're starting out. Look at the job. What is the long-term prospects of the job? Potential for learning, potential for personal development and growth that you could then take with you to another job. All right, that's all I have to say about that. I hope you found it helpful.